You can make great sounds using stock plugins. You can make great sounds or trash sounds using third-party plugins. The key of the matter is you gotta be able to listen. You gotta be able to use your ears. So it doesn't matter who runs the joystick. It's the player who's playing the game. You dig?
I'm too nice. Yes, you're too nice.
I said, look.
All right, so we're here in Logic Pro X. We have our 3 tracks, our kick, snare, and our hats. We also have our floating keyboard up. If you don't know how to bring this keyboard up, it's Command K. Command K will bring that keyboard up. Let me switch over here to the piano roll. We have our kicks here. We have our snare there. And we have our hi-hats here. So in order for us to get a good sound, let's create a quick drum loop so we can add some effects on this to beef up our drums. So that way we can make our drums, our kicks, hats, and snares cut through the mix and sound nice. Create a new MIDI region, because what we're going to do is we're going to plug these notes in. So we can close this down. So we're going to drag this up a little bit. So our hats, our BPM is going to be 85 BPM. So we're going to make something like the boom bap type of tempo. So that's about an 1/8 note. And we're going to do this real easy. So that's about an 1/8 note. So what you want to do is bring up the pencil tool. You press TB to bring up the pencil tool. And this is the root key for the snares. And if you want to zoom in and out, you hold the option key. And if you have a mouse, you can slide your finger to the right and then to the left to make the screen larger and smaller. So what we want to do is drag our 1/8 notes here. Then our snares goes on every 2 and every 4 in single time. If it's double time, it will land on every 3 and 6. So the 2 would be here and here. And now the kick, we could put the kick on the 30 seconds so that way we can add more notes into the to the playhead. So we're gonna keep this basic. We're gonna add one there, so it'll be boom, cack, and it'll be something like boom, boom, something like that. Boom, cack, boom, cack, something like that. So you go TT if you want to go back to the pencil tool, and with the boom bap is usually not on bar, something like that. So let's see what that sounds like. So now let's do a 1 bar loop instead of a 2 bar loop. That's almost there. Not quite there, almost, but it's almost there. Hold on. Let's get it right. Let's get that groove right. Almost. That sounds about right. So now usually this second note of the drum hit is usually like a ghost note. So what we could do here is just drag down the velocity of this one just a little bit. So that way you would have a ghost note. So there should be another kick right here. I hear another kick right here. TB, bring up the pencil tool. And what we could do is TT to go back to the pointer tool and then bring that back up to 80. This is all manual. You could do this much faster once you learn the program, but I'm trying to keep it for the sake of the video so that way you can follow along very easily. Here we go. All right, so now we got our drum pattern, right? So now we want our drums to sound beefy. We want our drums to cut through the mix. We want our kick to hit hard, our snares to snap right, and our hi-hats to be nice and subtle in the back, but having that that delay on it with effects and stuff like that. So the first thing that I do when I'm trying to get my sounds to actually sit correctly is I do some bussing. So what I mean by that is I'm going to open up the mix window, and how you can get to the mix window is you can press X, or you can highlight right here to bring up the mix window. So being that I have my drums, I usually always group my drums together. If I have my different type of instruments, I group my instruments together, my effects and things like that. The first thing that I do when I'm trying to get my sounds to sit right is I group my sounds together. So the first set of, since we only have these drums, I'm going to highlight all my drums so we could do this all at one time. And then we're going to select bus number 1, and we're going to send that to bus number 1, and we're going to crank the volume up. I don't have no set threshold of where I put it. I usually just put it to where it's not all the way on 0, or I listen to it, then I adjust it. But for now, I'm going to just stop it right there. So all of our sounds is going into aux number 1, and we want to do a little maintenance. So let's call this the... So now what we have here is we're busing a copy of all of these sounds into this one auxiliary track. So 2 things I like that I can do with this is it saves on CPU power if I want to start loading up plugins. Well, we're only going to use stock plugins, but once you start getting third-party plugins, it start killing that CPU. So what I like to do is send it to another bus, load up some plugins there, send it to another bus, put some more plugins over there, and I don't put a whole bunch of plugins on one. I kind of balance it out. And another thing it also gives you is volume. So if it's not as loud as it is on the first track, when you send it over to the aux track, you give it more volume. So we got our drums going out to our first aux tracks, which is our drums mix. And then the next thing I do is I'll send this aux track out to another bus, randomly selecting buses here. And I'll, like I said, put the volume up again. So what I'm doing is I'm also cheating a little bit by increasing the sound by adding these extra buses. And this right here will usually be my mix bus. My mix bus is usually where I would send, if I had multiple, more than just these 3 tracks, I would send all of those tracks to that mix bus as well, while I'll group my individual track and send them to a different bus. Now we have this aux track going into this aux track. So another thing that I also like to do is take this stereo output from the main track, and this is going to be more or less our last bus before it gets to the stereo output. So now here, this would be going out to picking random buses. So we're going to call that the mix bus. Actually, this right here would be my sub mix bus, and I will make this last one my mix bus. I have a copy of these sounds going into the drums aux. I have another copy. Actually, when you're sending it out from the output, you're sending out not just the copy, but the entire sound. So I'm sending out a copy through busing to one track, which is my drum track. And then I'm taking that drum track and I'm sending it to another aux track, which will be my sub-mix track. And I'm sending all my outputs into my mix bus. So now that's what that sound like. And we can do some adjusting, bring down the hats a little bit. Actually, what I really like to do, instead of me adjusting the volume, I like to have all my volume set to 0, right? So I would just throw like a gain. I'll throw like a gain meter on here, and then I'll bring the volume down that way. Alright. We have our sounds going through these buses. So the first thing we want to do is let's listen to the kick by itself. We click on the EQ because we're going to use all stock plugins. We could go through the presets. You could try a couple of these presets to see how you can get it sitting right. First thing I like to do is I take out a little bit of the lows. Around 40 hertz. And you see up in here from 80 to like 200, this is like our range for the beefy portion of the drum kick, right? So you want to listen. You just want to take a listen. This is where the punch is at over here. And that's it. That's all you got to do. Then if you want, you could just take a little bit of highs out. So that way, you know, those things don't bleed through. Not necessarily needed, but you can do it. And that's it. That's all I would do. That's all I would put right here because I'm listening. Now not just moving things because I see graphs. I'm actually listening. Now you see that thinness? Here we go. You hear that? So now we got a nice little EQ on it. First I'll put a bit crusher on it because I want a little noise on it. But I'm going to bring the mix down, the bit depth up. About 12. Give it a little bit of drive. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it peaking. As long as it doesn't sound distorted, it doesn't matter if it's peaking. Alright, that's good right there. So now from this point, I could throw a compressor on. I'm going to throw a compressor on there. I really don't need it, but I'm going to throw one on there because we ain't really put really anything on here. We're not going too crazy on this. So now you see this meter here. So what we want to adjust, we could adjust the threshold. Watch what happens to the meter and listen to the sound. It's letting more, and now it's letting more of the sound in. So you just ease it back. How much of the sound do you want to pump in? Then the ratio is how much. If it's like 2 to 1, for every 2 volumes up, we're going to drop it down 1. You just want to find a good balance. The knee is how soon it curves off. The sound curves off. You really have to listen to this to hear what the knee is doing. Now your attack is how soon you want the sound to start, and the release is how soon you want the sound to end. So being that this is a kick, I kind of want a fast attack because I want that right at the beginning of the transient. However, I want also a quick release. I don't want the drums to linger out past any other sound. And here you can give it a little gain, a little makeup gain. Once you finish taping it off a little bit, you can add a little more gain to it, and you can see the meter here what the threshold is. You don't want to crank it up too much. You can soft clip it, give it more power. I think that's good for right there. Alright, so now let's go to the snares. Same thing. Let's see. We add an EQ. Let's mute it out. And you can mix muted, unmuted with all the sounds together or not. I'm just, for the sake of the video, I'm just trying to show you to separate the sound so you can hear the sound individually and hear how it goes from lifeless to life. So again, we want to cut out some of these lows. We don't need all of this for the snares. Because if you go like this, listen. You hear? You cut all the life out. So listen, you got to take a listen. Don't look at the measurements. Don't look at the graph. Actually listen. Snapping, I love it. So boom, right here, where you want to snap at. That's where the snap is at. Imagine in high school when you was playing with the little spoons, the sporks, and you put a little bend at the end of it, and you snapped it back to smack and snap the forks. That's what that is. So we want that middle to stick out. And again, also, you could take out the highs if you want. Not necessary. You don't have to. Or you can just filter it out a little bit. Also not necessary. You don't have to. So it's all about the ear. Just listen. Because once you add instruments to it, you may even change this. But for the sake of this video, let's take this out a little bit. Nice and snappy. We're going to add a bit crusher to this as well. Take back the mix. Bring up the resolution. And we can slap the same compressor on, but we listen. We don't just look at the graph. We listening. We listen to see what the actual plugin is doing to our sound. Snap. You hear the snap? Oh. It's clipping a lot, so let's bring down. Also, I want a fast attack because I want you to catch it right. That's what a slow attack sounds like. That's what a fast attack sounds like. So I want it somewhere over here. Snap, snap, snap. See how slow it's releasing? We don't want it to release slow. Release a little fast. Watch the meter. Not right there is good. Give it a little gain. And bring the gain down a little bit. Hold on. Let's put a little clip on it. There we go. Slap. So now we got the hats. Here, I like to raise up my hats a little bit, bring it back a little bit, because I want to hear that like it's kind of like an airy sound that I'm listening for. It's good for when I put some reverb on this. And also, you could drop off the lows if you want to. Not necessary, but you can do it. If you like to be real neat and clean, you can do that as well. So that's all I want to do to the hats. I'm not going to put any. I don't put bit crusher. I don't compress. I may throw a Nah, I'm not going to do anything on the hats. I like the hats to stay subtle and like behind the beat, like. And if you want to copy over a plugin to the next track, hold down Option, click, then drag. While you're holding Option, let go the click button, so that way you could drag that sound or that plugin over to the next track. Now we're not clipping no more. That's why I told you don't even worry about clipping, because we fixed that in the mix. So now that we got our drums sounding nice and good, we're going to add just a couple more plugins on the Aux Tracks. Let's go back to the hats. There's two things I want to do with the hats. Let's throw a stereo delay on the hats. Actually, let's solo this. Add a little delay on it. Give it a little swing. You want to adjust the low and highs. You don't want it just bleeding all over the place. And I brought the feedback up because I couldn't hear it. So now I'm just adjusting it back, and I'm going to crossfade it left and right a little bit, just to give me some stereo sounds. You know, give me some movement within the beat, back and forth. And like I said, you got to listen. You got to listen for everything. So after I put my delay on it, let's add a little reverb, and we're going to just use some regular, all this stock plugin. So we're going to bring the wet down. Bring the dry down a little bit too. Gotta listen. You gotta listen. Yeah, that sounds about right. Let's see what that sounds like all in the mix. All right. Okay, so now we can go to the drum track and we can add more effects. All right, so on a drum track, we could just add a quick little limiter, give it about a 2 or 3 dB gain, see what it sounds like. So that's pretty much all I would do to this. You can add more plugins and effects on it. You really don't have to. It sounds pretty good from there. So another thing you could do is you could use the templates inside of Logic to actually give you a nice polished mastering sound. So let's see what some of these plugins sound like. Let's use this Final Hip Hop Master. So the Final Hip Hop Master sounds pretty good. I think that would cut through. Let's see. Let's add a quick little chord around this. So let's hit the plus button. We're going to add another software instrument. Let me open up the Analog Lab, create, and we're just going to lay a simple chord. Right click, create a MIDI region, double click that region, and we're going to create a simple chord. So I'm going to quantize my scale. So we're going to go with harmonic minor, and I like the A minor scale. Get the pencil or brush tool, TB, to get the brush tool, and any notes we add is always going to be in A minor. It will not be outside of A minor. Something simple like this, and it'll always be in chord. That's how that would sound against some type of instrument. So let's get rid of that. So once we have our sounds the way we need it to sound, for us now, what we can do now is we could just add this as an Apple loop. We could bounce it in place. We could export it as a MIDI file. There's a bunch of different things we can do. But what we want to do is just bounce this in place. We're going to name this kick 1. Bounce in place. We're going to name this snare 1. We're going to name this hat 1. So now we got all our sounds. You can highlight, if you want to cut off this excess, you highlight the loop, TI to bring up the cut tool, cut it, delete. So now that we have our kick, snares, and hats on as audio tracks, we could actually save this as an Apple loop and come back to it later. So you could right click, add to Apple loop. You could put it in a section of all drums, kick. The name of it is a kick 1. It's a one shot. You could give it a scale if need be. You could give it a genre if you wanted to. We can call this hip hop if they even have a hip hop. Yes, there we go, hip hop. You can give it a key, whatever key it's in. It already takes the tempo. So kick, anything here? Nope, create. Now that will be inside of your Apple Loops library. So to check for it, you search for kick 1. And here it goes right here. You could save this as a favorite. So every time you click on this, you could always get back to it. So this is our kick. Boom. So that is how you will use stock plugins to make your kick, snares, and drums cut through the mix, sound a little bit better. There's other plugins you could use within a stock portfolio, but a good investment is to try to get some third-party plugins. Wave is a great resource that I use, do the membership program, but only do what you can, never overextend yourself. So you can make great sounds using stock plugins. You can make great sounds or trash sounds using third-party plugins. The key of the matter is you gotta be able to listen. You gotta be able to use your ears. So it doesn't matter who runs the joystick. It's the player who's playing the game. You dig? So I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments if there's anything you didn't understand, something that you would like for me to show. I appreciate you sticking around. I'm Taurus the General. Peace.